I'm Pamela Douglas Alvarado, and I'm here to introduce Jo Grace. The graceful communicator has more than 33,000 hours of invested time speaking publicly to young adult students, lifelong learners, and late bloomers. Jo Grace is a certified master educator in spirituality and aesthetics, which is presently the title of one of her 3 books. But she would say of all her success, the greatest would be having raised 3 daughters that exemplify grace and beauty. Today, as the COO of Crave The Spotlight, she assists other speakers, teachers, and presenters how to touch, move, and inspire their audience. And now I present to you Jo Grace sharing her message, Life Lessons on a Long Road.
And you know you are. So you see that finesse? She's just so exciting. I want to thank you. I want to thank you, first of all, for attending, stepping out, and attending today. My message today is life lessons on a long road. I imagine, except for Angelica, most of us here are over 25.
There, yeah.
So it's been a long road. So along that long road, you've learned some life lessons. And there's somewhere someone waiting to hear those lessons. Yeah. That's what I call TMI. Now, if you're a young person, TMI means what?
Too much info.
You got on it. Too much information. But that also stands for touch, move, and inspire. But sometimes you have to provide too much information to touch, move, and inspire, which means that you have to become vulnerable to your audience. You have to become vulnerable to your listeners. So I'm going to give you one life lesson. So I'm going to start with one. And one of the ways to inspire is to tell your story. You all have a story. If you live long enough, you got a story. Okay, I've raised 3 daughters, so you know I have a story. I raised 3 daughters as a single parent, so you know I have a story. I've been married. I ain't gonna tell you how many times. But you know I have a story. And I'm now single and loving it. So you know I have a story. But what happened about a year ago, I was here, as you heard, I've written 3 books, and I was doing my book signing, and a gentleman walked in the store as I'm sitting in this type of setting, talking about my book, and he was just passing through. And as he passed through, he saw me doing my presentation, and he took the time, not knowing who I was, and he bought the book. And he left it here with Mother Rose, and he said, have her sign it when she's done with her presentation. Well, the name of the book, that particular session, was Sexy Girls Eat Sushi. This gentleman happened to be a pastor. So you can imagine when I saw the book and his card was stuck in my book. Not that Sexy Girls Eat Sushi is anything bad. Let me explain. Sexy Girls Eat Sushi, the sushi is an acronym, which means she uses what she has for her own inspiration. That's taking your gifts, your talents, and being inspired to use those gifts for whatever those God-given gifts have been given to you. But he didn't know that. He just saw the title of the book with this, and there's this little sexy bodice on the front. Sexy Girls Eat Sushi. But he was supportive enough to buy the book, just to be supporting me as an author. So he stuck this card in there, And I signed the book. She kept the book here. She gave him his book later on when he passed through the store again. And I kept that card in my wallet. 1 year from that book signing that I met that gentleman, I woke up one morning because I was in a transition. I didn't have a church home. And I woke up that morning and I pulled that card out of my wallet. And I said, you know what? This is where I'm supposed to go. I hope they're still there. Now, this is a year later. You know, churches close and go, and, you know, come on. So, you know, those folks that go to church, it's okay if you don't go to church. You know, that was just telling you my path. So I got up, I called the number, and it happened to be his cell number. And I could tell it was early, you know, and I said, well, I'm trying to find your church. I was wondering if your church is still there. And he says, yes, we start, because there was no one in the parking lot. He says, we don't start till 10:45 or 11 o'clock. And I said, fine. So I drove around, came over here, got coffee, and waited. And I arrived, got to the church, loved the church. And on the third Sunday that I was there, this was my third week being there, it happened to be communion. And communion, those of you familiar with communion, typically, depending on how you were raised, communion is done differently in every single church. Well, if you've been raised a certain way, you're used to doing communion a certain way. So that day I went in there and I sat down and I looked at the setup and I saw that there was the bread, but I saw only one goblet. Now, those who know me know I am a cootie freak. My students will tell you I am a cootie. They don't walk in my classroom. My classroom is clean. I am a cootie freak. Okay? So now I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh my God, how am I going to get out of this? I know they don't expect, because I'm thinking, maybe it's like a Catholic church or something. Everybody's going to drink. And I just kept thinking, oh my God, maybe I should just, and I'm trying to think of ways to get out, but I thought, okay, the back is too far, it's going to make too much noise. They're going to think I'm just a heathen, I'm taking the communion. But if I go that way, then the pastor's going to probably wonder, why am I going? And I'm thinking, okay, get over this fear, get over this fear, get over it. It's okay, you can do this, you can do this. And I'm thinking, okay, just when you get up there, just tell them you can't take it. I'm not drinking off of no cup behind anybody. I don't drink behind my babies. My babies will tell you, if you drink off, you can have it. I don't deal with backwash. Okay? So I'm just really, I got this all built up in my head. I just don't leave. I said, talking, self-talk, talking to myself. And then I started noticing everybody was merging out into the aisle. And I'm still sitting. They're all merging out to the aisle. So they're coming down the aisle. And I'm still sitting. And I was like, get up. Oh, just go. So I finally started walking out to the center aisle. And I'm still thinking, how can I get out of this? I'm going to just tell the pastor. So as soon as I get closer and closer and closer, I noticed that they started kneeling. And they started kneeling at the altar. And there was this wood-type fence. And so I got a little bit closer. And then as soon as I got close enough, I noticed that there was like this flip tray that's on the back side of the altar with a bunch of little bitty cups. I said, "Ooh!" Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. So why am I telling you that story? Because sometimes we create our own fears. Yes. False evidence appearing real. I was ready to lose. I was so excited and passionate about this. I was just so happy I was there, and I was ready to leave and not come back. Because if they're going to make me drink off of a goblet behind, oh no, it's not for me. I mean, I'll take that stuff serious. So that was a lesson that I learned about creating your own fears. We create our fears. So when it comes to speaking, we We create our fears. Typically, it's more in our mind than it is in their mind. We're worried about how we look, what we sound like. Did I say it just right? Did I pronounce the word right? Did I move right? Was I funny enough? Instead of just bringing your story. And I'm all about this. This is. I have a little word thing. I always put new words in. And I like what you said your mother told you. New words. New words. Put new words in your vocabulary. We learned what? Laconic today? What was laconic?
Laconic was expressing yourself.
And it was briefly.
Briefly, yes. But in a way people understand.
And the way people understand. We had flabbergasted.
To shock and awe.
Okay, to shock and awe. We had grapple. Not a word that we typically use, right? But she was grappling with whether or not she should repost. And notice I remember that. Because you have to have what? Listening skills. Your best speakers your best speakers are your greatest listeners. And if you want to excel at interpersonal skills, become a good listener. If you want to become a great speaker, become a good listener. Stories are around you all the time. It may not be your story. It may be someone else's story that encourages, it touches, and it moves, and it inspires. Thank you so much.